Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Welcome to The Paper Fold. I am your host, Sarah, the paper nerd, and I'm so glad to be back nerding out with you on my favorite topic, stationery. Before I get to my guests today, let's talk about my very special sponsor, Avanti Press. You have already heard me wax eloquent about this brand and the several dynamic card ranges available under its roof, namely Avanti, A Press, America, and now Nikki D. But this month, I'm spilling the tea on a very special event they are spearheading in 2025. The Greeting Card Association's workshop and retreat just wound down in Boulder, Colorado, with the wonderful Lean and Tree folks playing the host. Well, next year, it is moving to Avanti's Hood, Detroit, and they are already thinking about how they may tweak the format to better reflect the challenges of our times and the state of our industry. While learning sessions and plenty of time to unwind with your fellow paper nerds will definitely be on the agenda, Avanti's founder, Rick Ruffner, wants to host in Detroit to celebrate the category in a big way. Avanti's talented director of product planning and testing, Lisa Engler, is chairing the event with Dave Phipps as her official wingman. Together, they are well poised to ensure that attendees leave the Motor City energized to navigate the many challenges presented by the current stationery landscape. But it can't succeed unless we all get involved. If you don't already belong to the Greeting Card Association, please consider joining and then consider signing up for this committee like I just did. I hope to see you there and in Detroit. Now, on to my guests today. For this episode, we actually traveled to the gorgeous old Alexandria neighborhood of Washington, D.C. But actually, if you have a Netflix subscription, you don't have to leave your couch. This fall, the 7th season of Love is Blind aired, and the week of October 7th through 13th, the show topped the Nielsen streaming charts with 1.226 billion minutes viewed. And when it comes to the season's fan favorite couple, Garrett and Taylor, well, stationery and calligraphy and hand lettering and even exchanging notes played a very special role in their story. In episode 10, which I urge every listener to watch, even if they think reality TV is beneath them, the couple visited Penny Post, owned by Amy Rutherford, for a very special calligraphy session with Michele Hatty Fritz of Meant to Be Calligraphy. Then, somewhat serendipitously, Michele manned a letter writing station at the couple's wedding. Of course, I have a million questions for both of them, and I'll have them here to answer every single one of them right after this. Hey nerds, I cannot be the only one wondering what that fantastic and fantastical LA-based brand Girl with Knife has been up to lately. After all, this California house of design has trailblazed its way through paper goods, home decor, and yes, even house design since the incredible creative powerhouse Alicia Castaldi founded it in 2018. Every last creation humbly springs from a nimble slice of Alicia's knife, aka her trusty X-Acto blade, with messaging and imagery that is by turns sweet and sassy, but always incredibly smart. You want this girl by your proverbial side. It's no surprise then that Girl with Knife has assembled a huge stack of titles and awards in its brief existence. Among them, the incredibly prestigious Artist of the Year Louis Award in 2022, as well as the equally competitive but far edgier Best Use of Profanity, Noted at Noted Award, and not just once, but 2 times over. Clearly, I am not the only one waiting raptly to see what drops next. New for 2025, look out for a dozen new card designs, both everyday and seasonal, as well as some gorgeous wraps in which to stylishly clad your gifts. Alicia tells me it is a tease to whet your appetite for a much larger spring release coming. I, for one, cannot wait. Meanwhile, since officially opening its doors for business, Knife House Palm Springs has been booked rather solid with weddings and photo shoots. And after 2 years of painstaking work, Knife House Bel Air is finally complete. These houses panels transmit Alicia's vision into exquisite three-dimensional living spaces. But for those of us who cannot experience them in California, Girl with Knife dispenses that glamour in paper and gift form. Thus, whether it is a hilarious greeting card for that bestie you have been missing, like the one reading, "You're the only one I answer the phone for," against an image of an old-fashioned phone replete with curly cord, or the eternally fierce candle, an intoxicating essence of midnight rose to remind you of your true nature in olfactory form, this is officially your brand new BFF in paper goods and home decor. So, if you're a paper or design nerd out in the wild looking to express your best self as you lift up those you adore, head on over to girlwithknife.com and immerse yourself. And if you are in the trade, shop this top shop brand sensation exclusively on Fair 24/7 and be on the lookout for winter market specials. I guarantee your stationery, as well as your living and workspaces, will slay.
Michele and Amy, welcome to the Paper Folds.
Thank you for having us.
So, like many Americans, watching Love is Blind for me is a guilty pleasure. I watch it for the love. I watch it for the hate. I don't really know exactly why I keep watching. But the last thing I expected to see during the parts of the series that deal with the wedding planning was them going to an ultra chic stationery store like Penny Post. So how exactly did this come to be, Michele?
I'm a professional calligrapher, and I also have been teaching calligraphy and brush lettering workshops for the past several years. I've been teaching since 2011, and the producers reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in teaching a class to a couple who was getting married for a reality show. But they didn't tell me what show it was or anything like that. They said they'd tell me after we had signed, releases or whatever. So when they reached out to me, the first thing that I did was text Amy. And then I couldn't help myself. I just called her, even though it was 9:00 at night. And I said, "Hey, producers of a reality show have reached out to ask if I would be willing to teach a calligraphy workshop. And I think that it would be that the perfect place to teach it would be Penny Post. Would you like to do this with me?" And Amy, because she's wonderful, immediately at 9:00 in the evening said, "Sure." So
it was more like, yeah, of course.
Hey nerds, many of you are already familiar with Paper Baristas and its incredible founder, Christy Asper. Christy was my guest on episode 56 of the Paper Fold and is also a longtime friend and sponsor of our Nerd Notes segment. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce something special just for the new year, Paper Baristas Fair Trade Planners 2025. Year in and year out, the following for these babies grows, since users find that these gorgeous creations quickly become as essential to getting anything done as that first cup of coffee. What sets Paper Baristas pressed planners apart from all the rest, however, is not just their stellar design, but that every last aspect of their manufacture truly aims to improve our planet. They are fair trade certified, made with eco-friendly materials, with 10% of the profits donated to the International Justice Mission to fight human trafficking. That means that even after the year ends, your purchase is helping someone's fresh start. Take it from me, I look at products all day, every day, and it is very difficult, if not outright impossible, to create a product that doesn't just look good, but truly does good as well. Their fair trade pressed planners are a labor of love to bring into the world every year. Christy has written that between material shortages and keeping factories audited for safe working environments, it's truly a miracle to generate each batch. Part of what makes these so remarkable is that when Christy first designed them, no one was approaching the planner category so responsibly. How empowering is it to choose to spend your money on a product so carefully and lovingly brought to life, especially when so much in this product category is not made responsibly? Pressed planners stand apart thanks to their easy luxury and utter simplicity. They enable you to completely organize your life and look ultra polished while doing so. Each posh, library cloth covered cover is graced with metal book corners to match the foil printing along its front and wire rings along its side. These are durable, strong, and gorgeous, and promise to remain so as you journey through your year. Inside, each month has a tabbed section that kicks off with a page dedicated to your own personal monthly blend, aka your goals and important dates. That's followed by a month at a glance spread, followed by a series of weekly spreads on the left with dot grids for notes and doodles on the right. Every last element unites so you can have your entire life in control, literally within your hands. Since 2019, this Iowa family-owned brand has devoted itself to leaving the earth a better place by creating goods that are eco-conscious, fair trade, and give back. Supporting paper baristas means supporting this lofty, heady mission. 2025 Fair Trade pressed planners are now available for pre-order, but act quickly. Due to fair trade margins, these are produced in small quantities and they sell out quickly. Visit paperbaristas.com to see why behind every successful person is a substantial amount of coffee and a Paper Baristas Fair Trade Planner. Finally, while you're there, check out the other wonderful collections from this mission-driven all-American brand. From Swedish dishcloths to microfiber tea towels to some of the most gorgeous handmade cards you've seen, you'll elevate both your world and our common good.
Let me ask you, from the time of that text to the time when you were actually like setting up your shop and they were coming in with the cameras and the dollies and of course the bride and groom, like what was the duration of time between the text and, oh, Netflix is here with the cameras?
About a week at the most.
Yeah, maybe 2. Yeah, it was very short, very short.
When they reached out to me, the producers were still in Mexico with the couples. So they were like heading back this way, probably when they sent me the inquiry. And so we met up with them at Penny Post just so that they could see the space and meet us. And because I had told them, I said, this is the most charming place in Old Town Alexandria, and Old Town Alexandria is the most charming place in the world. So this will be a great spot for this to happen. So they came and they met me and Amy. And after they met us, it was really quick. I mean,
yeah, we had to move. We had to move fast, and we had to get. We had to decide where they would be in the space and what would be behind them, because there would have to get materials releases, and so we reached out to a few of our stationers, thinking that we could have their art, their cards behind the couple, and got materials releases from them so that could be used. That didn't wind up happening, and they wound up not being necessary. And if you look very closely at the segment, you'll see behind Garrett's shoulder an empty shelves, because that's where they were supposed to be sitting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing like a little last minute, oh, we're going to put this here and just never mind all that type of thing. That's incredible. And I thought, so for me as a viewer and a paper nerd, I'm watching the show like anybody else. As soon as they started showing, I believe the first thing in the segment was like the ink colors. Was it the ink colors or the paper or the calligraphy, or maybe like a few close-ups of really nice wedding invitations? Like I almost fell out of my chair. Like that was the last thing I expected to see. I love that it really provided some local color to DC, aside from, most of the political sort of backdrop that most people think of. But I just want to say it was the last thing I expected on that particular show, for them to start talking about the value of correspondence and leaving notes for each other. And I just thought it was so incredible. For both of you, I'm also curious. I know we started discussing it, but I'm a little curious about the technical aspect of shooting. Obviously, you had very little time to prepare, Amy, but you had to close your shop? How many days did shooting occur over? What did we as viewers not really get to see?
Well, we only had to close for one day, which was good. I wasn't there because I was off visiting my son in Vermont at a parents' weekend at college. And so we were only allowed to have one person in the store with Michele. We have a basement down at Penny Post, and we cleared that out. It has a table down there. So the crew, and Michele can speak more to this, but the crew was down there. And she was upstairs with everybody. But our one person was our visuals director. His name's Doug Mueller, and he's fantastic. He was our representative, and a far better representative than I would have been, because he was able to make the store look good, even though there was that one weird shelf and another strange line behind Taylor's shoulder. I won't go into it. Anyway, he did a great job. They moved the table that where they're sitting is not usually there. They had moved the table over. So that if Michele, you could actually, I'll let you speak to the technical stuff, because I did get back in time to meet them and take pictures with Michele, and they were lovely. But go ahead, Michele. You lead the way.
Michele, before you get started, let me just ask, because I think a lot of my listeners won't understand, like how many square feet is your store to begin with, Amy? Is it like 1,000 square feet? Like, we're talking a very small space to begin with, right?
Yeah, it's 900 square feet, and that includes an ADA accessible bathroom. So, yeah, it's very small.
So there must have been a lot of people in there, Michele.
Well, notably, the ADA accessible bathroom is where the crew set up. And that's where they were monitoring the cameras and sort of listening to the conversation. There were 3 or 4 people in that bathroom. So that was fun. The role that Doug played, Amy mentioned Doug, her visual designer, the role that he played was actually huge. When the crew arrived at the shop, they decided that the space that we were going to teach the class in was just a little bit too small for them to be able to get the cameras swirling around as they needed to. So Doug was able to help us pivot and clear the space right in the center of the store so that we could move the table there, and so that there was plenty of room for the cameras to get around. But what was really awesome about where we set up, and what was really awesome about how Doug was so quick and able to pivot, was that by moving us to where we ended up, the Penny Post logo is like perfectly positioned behind Garrett and Taylor as they're taking the class. So for me, I was really excited about that, because as we were going into this whole process, my number one goal was really to be able to showcase how wonderful Penny Post is, because it's just my favorite place. So by moving them, that was great. There was just a little bit more room for the cameras. There was also a little bit more room for me. Like, I could stand there and easily reach them. My class is typically 3 hours long. I arrived to the store at noon to greet the crew and let everybody in. And I think we were finished around 4 p.m. I didn't teach the class fully the way that I normally would, because as you can imagine, production had a lot of interruptions for different shots, and because they wanted to suggest topics for the couple to discuss. They never, ever told anybody what to say, which I was glad about. But they did, understandably sort of say, hey, why don't you kind of talk about how you're feeling about this or that, or what you're thinking about this topic or that topic. So there were times when I just stepped away so that they could have a conversation. And when that happened, I stood next to the ADA bathroom so that I wouldn't be in the shot. It was pretty great. But the store looked so beautiful, and everything was lit so beautifully, and I was really excited about it.
Yeah, I thought the store looked amazing, and as someone who sort of saw the age where everybody would buy their wedding invitations out of albums, and then it went away, and now we're sort of starting to see it again. I think my hope is that maybe brides and grooms start going to, their card and paper shop for these things, because as the segment so beautifully depicted, there's so much more to it. there's so much more to an invitation than you think on a screen, but there's also so much more to our communications and, what matters. I mean, I love that they talked about their families and that they brought all the old correspondence, which was gorgeous, of course. So, to that end, Michele, you've mentioned you teach brush lettering all the time in 3-hour classes. This had to be a once in a lifetime event for you. So I'm curious, has there been more interest from brides and grooms since the show aired?
Yes. So, one of the fun things that Amy and I are looking forward to is that I'm going to be teaching at Penny Post in the new year. I'm going to teach
Mhm.
my Intro to Modern Pointed Pen Calligraphy class and my Intro to Modern Brush Lettering class at the store in January, February, and March. And we opened registration for the classes the day that the episode aired because we thought that was probably a time when people might be popping over to Penny Post's website or to my website to see more. So we wanted to make sure that opportunity was available. We have filled about a quarter of the spots so far. I do feel like it was a little bit early. I normally wouldn't open registration for the new year until like mid to late November for the holiday. And so popping those spots open in the middle of October was a little bit of a risk, but we have seen a lot of interest. I've also gotten a lot of questions about additional classes beyond that for people who maybe those dates aren't going to work. Just people who've asked to be on my email list to find out when new dates are posted. So yeah, it's been pretty fun.
I think that makes sense. I mean, look, tomorrow we're recording. Tomorrow is election day. I think it's pretty safe to say that like people just aren't, living their lives like they usually do. And then I also think, there's all those Christmas Eve and Christmas proposals. Like my guess is you get a big rush of brides and grooms as the new year sort of kicks off as well. So Michele, so here's my $1 million question. As soon as they started talking about the letter writing station at the wedding, I was like, they better get married. So we could see this letter writing station, which they never showed. But I understand that, Michele, you manned it and ran it. So can you please describe it? And I'm curious about the logistics of it, but also the response of the guests.
Yes. So I was the letter writing station at the wedding. In addition to the work that I do in my own studio, I also do live events and on the spot calligraphy for different events and different companies. And actually, I do it for Amy every now and then too. And it's really fun for me to get out of the studio and get into the world and do the work. So, and so that other people can see how it's done. So when they decided to go ahead with the letter writing station, they decided that it would be probably easiest if someone was there to facilitate it. And so I ended up working their reception. I was there for most of the day. I think I arrived at 2 and left once the reception was like almost over. And yeah, so I brought my pens, which actually I brought brush pens that I purchased at Penny Post because they stock really excellent brush pens. So I used the Le Pen Flex and the Pentel Sign Pen, both of which you can find at Penny Post, and also Micron PNs, which are also at Penny Post. And I used those.
You are the best plugger for my store. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, what would I do without it? It's the greatest. Anyway, so I used those at the reception to write notes from the guests to the couple. And part of the reason that we did it this way was so that in the end, they would have sort of this uniform look to these cards. So they'd have the sentiments of their guests, but they'd also have these beautifully written cards without having to have their guests scribble them out themselves.
Sure.
So that was sort of the reason that we did it that way. And yeah, the wedding planner set me up with this crazy giant white desk that she had found somewhere and gave me some gold stickers to use to seal the envelopes. I brought the paper with me the cards and envelopes and my pens. And yeah, I just basically, it was fun for me because I got to interact with all their guests, and I got to listen to all the toasts and, see them dance and watch them cut the cake and basically do all the things that you'd see at a wedding reception.
Right.
And since I'd had the opportunity to spend that afternoon with them, I felt like I knew them a little bit, like well enough to be very excited for them. So yeah, in addition to keeping a secret that we had filmed the class at Penny Post for a year, I also had to keep the secret that they actually got married, because I was one of the few people outside of their friends and family who knew that they had in fact tied the knot. So
did you both had to sign non-disclosures, I'm sure. Did you?
We signed something. We're not sure what it was, but we kept the secret. Either way.
Yeah.
And when you showed up at the wedding, Michele, I'm sure there was a chance that you might not have manned the station. Like if they didn't get married, I mean, they pretty much made that clear to you that you're probably going to be doing it, but possibly not.
This is kind of silly, but I had never watched the show ever. So I knew there was a chance that they might not get married. It didn't ever really cross my mind that they would get all the way to the wedding and like the vow part and say no. So I kind of felt like, well, I'm going to the reception, like they're surely getting married. And I later learned that, in fact, they had all the way up until they said their vows to decide not to. I honestly never thought that they would decline. They really seemed well matched to me, well suited. So I just figured they were a sure thing. But the first episode I ever watched of Love is Blind was season 7, episode 1. So I was in for a real shock as to how the show actually unfolds.
I mean, the whole idea that they have a wedding and they might not actually get married is just like the twist that if you haven't watched the show, you could never imagine. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, thank goodness they are for the support if they don't go for it.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But so much work. I mean, and they've, and it clearly they have a whole reception set up. So like, I always wonder, what do they do? I mean, I guess everybody just packs up and goes home.
Food, DJ, the whole thing, cake. I mean, full bar, all those golden goblets were represented.
Someone's going to be drinking.
Yeah, and they filmed the whole reception. So I was disappointed that they didn't show any of it beyond just them walking in and twirling around on the dance floor, because it was, the toasts were lovely and the decor was beautiful, and so was the letter writing station.
You were, and not so much as a paper nerd. I do feel like if you establish something in a show, you have to follow through. So if they're going to spend, I mean, I don't know how long your segment was, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you're going to spend 5 minutes talking about letters, 3, if you're going to spend 3 minutes, but you got to tie it up with a bow at some point. I know this. Everyone
Amy and I agree. If you show the gun in Act 1, it needs to go off in Act 3. It is basic.
100%. Yes.
Basic writing. But this is reality, and I guess you don't have to do that.
I guess it just all depends who says yes and who says
right.
Yes.
Well, and Michele, wasn't it true that they didn't originally plan to do the letter writing station until after we had talked to them? I think they threw it in after that discussion with us, and then do I remember that right, or am I making it up?
Well, during the class, they were taught. Well, while I was teaching the class with them, one of the things that I talked to them about was how they could integrate the letters into their reception, and how they could integrate, beautiful writing and calligraphy and whatever into their reception in general. And so I think it was actually in the course of the afternoon that the idea of the letter writing station came up. And then it was after the class that they asked if I would actually be the letter writing station. That certainly wasn't part of the plan.
That's amazing. And, sometimes the best things. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure they loved her vibe after all of the Netflix and the producer. Not that they're bad, but, there's something so organic and calming and peaceful about writing letters. And again, just the slowing down to do this. And I'm sure the whole engagement and show was a whirlwind, and you barely have time to sort of like sit back and take a breath and be like what am I doing? So,
well, one other thing that didn't get shown for the reception is that Garrett and Taylor wrote letters to each other before the wedding that they would then exchange after they were married. And they actually sent the letters to me, and I wrote them out in calligraphy, and we rolled them up into like kind of a scroll, tied them with a ribbon, put them in a glass box. And those letters were actually at the reception for them to exchange, anytime after they got married. So that was another way that they included paper in their wedding in a very meaningful, very private way that hopefully, they'll have for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, that's such
By the way, I got my ink at Penny Post for that too. It's Ziller, my favorite. And Amy
I promise I'm not paying her.
Amy carries it because I recommended it. And so, she carries my
Michelle's my go-to calligraphy artist.
I mean, I love that you have this kind of partnership, and these partnerships are like the backbone of our industry. And I feel like if a couple is coming to you, Amy, for let's say like a really ornate letterpressed invitation suite, it's so easy for you to say, oh, let me do something kind of matching and pull something out so that you guys can have letters, and or somehow incorporate this process into your invitation process. This is all the kinds of things that a stationer can sort of like easily do, a brick and mortar that is much harder to generate online. I mean, could you imagine doing this with like an Etsy store? So, Amy, I mean, I love it. I feel like the crews for reality shows, like they filmed in bathrooms, they filmed like behind bars, like to do those shows. Like these people are practically like like they're enlisted in the army or something. Like they really go through it.
Cirque du Soleil has nothing on you.
We'll be right back after this.
Blinds.com's Black Friday sales event is happening now with our best deals of the season. Let our design experts help you make the perfect selection for your home on your schedule. We can send free samples right to you and handle everything from measure to install. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 50% site-wide, plus doorbusters, and a free professional measure at the Blinds.com Black Friday sales event now. Rules and restrictions may apply.
And we're back.
I have to say too, because I was there, the crew loved Penny Post and they just could not get enough of it. As soon as we finished filming, luckily Amy was able to be there because I don't work there and I couldn't sell anybody anything and they all wanted to buy everything. So I was like, everybody just hold on. Someone will be here to sell things to you. And luckily Amy was there and she was able to cash everybody out because they were not leaving without treats. It's too, you walk in and you just can't leave without buying something.
Don't worry, everyone. There's enough cards, pens, and stickers and ink for everyone. So
go around. Yeah.
Don't worry. Just wait while she gets ready to ring you up. So, Amy, I mean, this is really, my $1 million question. Well, one of them. I mean, do you think that with the young generation, we are seeing something of maybe not quite a rejection to digital communications, but maybe an embrace of more of the traditional communications? The way that we saw Garrett and Taylor really revering the letters that their deceased family members sent. They incorporated leaving notes in their relationship, and they encouraged their guests to be part of this experience. It was really a thing of beauty to observe. So in your opinion, you're dealing with brides and grooms and, paper nerds in the wild, so to speak. So I'm really curious, is this a bona fide trend?
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, let me just say, paper people are the best people. You talked about partnerships earlier, and just the collaborations and the connections that you make in the paper community and the way people build each other up is really tremendous. I've met some very good friends within the community, and we share quite a bit. I know this is a podcast, but you can see me, and you see Christmas puzzles behind me. I'm actually in my other store, Red Barn Mercantile, which is where we grew Penny Post. So we moved here in 2012 to this location, which was smaller than the first location, and started adding paper, and it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And actually very inspired by Michele and Noel Gary of, I'm blanking on.
Oh, so beautiful paper.
Oh, so beautiful paper. Thank you. I'm sorry, Noel, if you hear that. They both inspired me to look further at this niche market. And when I did, I found that millennials, and mostly millennials and Gen Z, were really driving this. I won't call it a resurgence or even a renaissance, but just this love of paper, this analog, because it is analog, right? They are digital natives, and they are so tied to their phone that having something physical to use and to express themselves with is novel, is the gift, right? So anybody can send a text to their friend on their birthday or over Facebook. But to really show genuine connectedness, they're going out and buying a card, or they're sending a gift, or sharing a journal or something like that with their friends. And that's much more meaningful. So we are very much, and I think that's part of the reason why bookstores are coming back, brick and mortar toy stores are coming back, because of this generation who is tired of the internet and wants to connect in a way that is not digital. That's as me waxing poetic and being philosophical. I could be totally wrong, but certainly my numbers don't, and Penny Post being on Love is Blind don't deny that I'm wrong.
Right. I tend to agree. And I've covered stationery and gifts since the late 90s. Stationery was always kind of the red-haired stepchild alongside, gifts and home decor and tabletop. And I think what we're seeing with this younger generation, they're sort of sick of sort of viewing products as, a commodity. Well, stationery, and also, we see this whole underconsumption trend. Well, a notebook is not really like a wasted thing, because it's, you fill it and you use it. And it's the same with cards or pens, or, there's always a need for these things. And I love that they're appreciating it. And hopefully, too, they're starting to understand that, a card from your grandma stands up to the test of time like nothing can. That text she sent you on your phone's going to be obsolete. You might not be able to pull it up, but that card from her, you're going to pull it out from an envelope, and it's going to be as fresh as the day she wrote it and put it in the envelope. And it's.
I'd add that, and this goes back to the calligraphy part too, is seeing their handwriting.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like my mom passed away in 2021, and I'm glad I have everything she's ever written me, because I loved her handwriting, and I get to think of her whenever I see it. So
yes, yeah. And when you lose someone, their handwriting is so evocative, just seeing it, I think, can garner a very emotional response. That's why so many people cherish their grandma's recipe cards. And, it's not just the recipe, it's that she wrote it. So I always close with nerd notes. I switch up the format just a bit, and just to ask my guests to share a memorable card or letter that they've received, and just the first one that comes to your head. And so I'd like to see yours if possible, and hear the circumstances around it. Amy, I think I see you reaching for yours. So would you like to go first?
Yes, I will. So This is, I'm much older than lots of people, but this is from probably 80 something, early 80s, late 70s. See, this is from my grandmother, who was a little weird. she took this cute little bear and made a devil out of him, gave him a beard and a mustache. But that's her handwriting, and I love it. And it's just the strangest letter. I reread it this morning, and she was an icon. I mean, she was hysterical, and I love reading it. It was, and I found other ones, and as I was looking through, like I kept notes from high school, the notes we would pass to each other in high school, which is before text. I have all of those. And the poor kids today, they don't get to keep those things. I have letters from the boy who had a crush on me when I was 15, all those things.
Those are great. I love that it was like one of those that you sealed it. It was like a business letter that you sealed it, and then you put a sticker on it, and then you wrote the address on the other side of something and seal. What do they call the stamp and seal cards? You sometimes see them for camp letters, but you don't really see them as much anymore. I love it. I love that she editorialized. I'm a big editorializer on cards. Like if I'm sending a happy birthday card and it's belated, like I'll make a little carrot and write belated. Like I think that people should make stationery their own, and that's part of the fun of it. I love that she did it. Clearly, she helped generate a wonderful paper nerd. So, Michele, let's hear yours.
Well, mine is, Amy already knows this, but when I got married in 2008, and for my second Christmas with my husband, our first Christmas married, he asked me what I wanted, and I said, I don't want anything. I just want you to write me a letter. And he's not really a words person. He's like the greatest husband in the entire world, but he's not really a words person, and I am very much a words person. So I knew it was a big ask to ask him to write me a letter. And Christmas came and went, and there was no letter. And then we celebrate with his family on the 26th. And the 26th came, and we got to the end of the night on the 26th. And he said, so you probably noticed that you didn't get a letter. And I said, yeah, it's okay. I totally understand. I knew it was a big ask, and I love you anyway. And he said, well, the reason you didn't get a letter is because instead of writing you one letter, I am going to write you a letter every month next year. So instead of one letter, you're going to get 12 letters. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And, but he wasn't. And so I went back and I found the original stack from the first year that I had tied with a ribbon way back then. So these are the first letters that he wrote me. But where this gets ridiculous and awesome to me is that at the end of the year, so that was all of 2009. These letters all represent 2009. At the end of the year, I asked him if he would renew my subscription. And he said yes. So he has been writing me love letters every month for 16 years. Well, 15 years. Well, 15 and a half years, because we got married in May and he didn't start writing them until, January or whatever. But yeah, so these are the originals. And these don't even have the month on them. He wrote they're just blank. The outside of the envelope is blank, and then the letter is inside. But now he has to write, November 2024, because there's so many and I need to keep them in order because, of course, I'm a paper nerd and I've got every single one that he's ever written to me. So yeah, and may I just say, he still hates it. He hates doing it. It's like asking him to get his blood drawn every month. But he does it because he's awesome, and there you go. So yeah, that's it.
And he loves you.
And he handwrites them, and it's really sweet. So, but I will say, like with Amy and her grandmother's letter, I have all the letters that my mom ever wrote me, that my dad ever wrote me. They both passed away. Like the significance of having those pieces of paper that the people that you love the most have written on and sent to you, or even if they've just handed them to you. These letters from my husband clearly don't come through the mail. It's so meaningful to look back. And like Amy, like you were saying, you were kind of reading back through some things as you were preparing for this question. I started to read back through some of the letters that Todd had written after after this first year. And it's just incredible to think of like where you were in life when certain things were happening and who was alongside of you during that time. Like when your grandmother was still alive and my parents were still alive, like those were very ordinary times, but looking back, very meaningful times. And to have little pieces of them along with us now is just awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like a photograph of who you were then, but just verbally, a verbal photograph. And the fact that he wrote all that, I mean, like, what a testament to how he feels about you. That's amazing.
I mean, he hates doing it. I really can't express enough how hard it is for him. But he
Let me
is
ask you
exceptional.
something.
You can see why Michele is the perfect person to do. She. I know nobody who loves love more than Michele does, and so this opportunity was like it's kismet, right?
I mean, I have to say, and my biggest question to you is this: like, so you were looking through the old ones from the early, like when he was first doing it, and maybe when he thought it was an exercise for a year. So when you look at those first ones, I mean, do you think his letter writing skills have improved? Has his penmanship improved? Is he a little more, confident and, joking through these letters? Like, how do you think he's developed as a letter writer, even if he hates it?
Well, he's a very consistent person. And so his handwriting was beautiful then and it's beautiful now. That hasn't changed. My handwriting has gotten terrible because I do so much calligraphy that if you give me a regular pen, all hell breaks loose and I can't. I mean, it's just a mess. He, of course, he's so consistent, so reliable. His handwriting is perfect. It's lovely. He's just a very thoughtful person. And so when he does finally sit down to do it, he usually surprises me, which is pretty great. It's nice to be surprised by hearing what he's thinking. I mean, the reason I asked him to write me a letter is because, again, he's not a words person. So he doesn't necessarily say some of the things to me that he writes in the letters. And so, it's just nice to hear that he's happy. Like that's pretty much, he just tells me he's happy in like several different ways across time.
Right.
And that is all I want,
Oh,
So.
I love that. And the way you're going to express yourself in a letter is going to be different than in a conversation or in a text. Or, it's just, but it's neat to see someone sort of developing that muscle, even unwillingly.
Yeah, even though he's like a hostage victim. Yeah, no, he hates doing it. I can't express it enough. He does not enjoy it. He does enjoy my reaction is always over the top because I'm so excited whenever it arrives because it's not like the first of every month the letter arrives. Like he's usually in arrears. There's usually a time lapse. Anyway, and there are some months where he doesn't get to it, but for the most part, he's really on top of it. So.
I think that's nice. I think it's a wonderful tradition, and hopefully more couples will start doing that. I would think, especially in more recently married couples, like it might actually be really therapeutic. Like some of the power struggles that go on early in a marriage, often it's hard to have face-to-face conversations, but maybe if you're having an issue, like you can kind of discuss it a little more calmly in correspondence, so to speak.
Well, yeah. And it's just an opportunity to express appreciation. So I express appreciation to him verbally all the time. Like I thank him for things and I tell him he's great. And this is just a way for him to express how he's feeling or, they're not just like, it's not like he sends me a thank you letter every month because that'd be terrible. But
thank you for dinner last night.
Yeah, that
would
be
very
awful.
tasty. Yeah.
But it's just I think that in marriage, being able to encourage each other and to, express appreciation for your spouse is a nice way to live. And so anyway, they're just love letters.
I agree.
They're just nice love letters.
He's speaking your language. He's speaking your love language, literally. Well, Michele and Amy, I cannot thank you both enough for coming by the Paperfold and all that you're doing for correspondence and stationery and calligraphy and hand lettering. I mean, it's very, very exciting. And I just can't thank you both enough.
Well, I just
thank you for having us.
But if anybody happens to be in Old Town, which again, Old Town Alexandria is such a beautiful place. They really, all paper nerds and adjacent family members really need to stop in a Penny Post because, I mean, it is just the most magical place. Every time I go in there, I see something new that I'm excited about. Everybody who works there is so friendly. Like you're just, I don't know. It's a real, to me, it's a really joyful place. It's a little subversive too, because, Amy's got a great sense of humor. And so there's a lot of stuff in there too.
I get it from my grandmother.
Yeah, that'll just make you laugh.
Yes. Wait, what does your sweater say?
It says never voted.
You're wearing a subversive. Yeah, she's wearing a subversive sweater on the paper fold. So,
It says nevertheless she voted.
Yes. So thank you both again for dropping by. This was so wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you, Michele. The check's in the mail.
Thank you so much again, Michele and Amy, for dropping in the paper fold. I love all that you are both doing for stationery. One carefully hand-lettered letter using exquisite penny post ink at a time. If you are close by, I urge you to visit the shop and try out one of Michele's classes in the new year. If not, pop some popcorn and tune into the latest season of Love is Blind for yourself. Finally, thank you for listening. Of course, feel free to give me a 5-star rating and review if you are so inclined. The Paperfold is proud to be a member of the Evergreen Podcast Network. To learn more about this dynamic community, please visit evergreenpodcast.com. Thank you so much, nerds, and please stay safe out there.
Is the pressure of your wedding day being perfect from sunrise to sunset weighing on your mind? Planning a wedding is stressful. But guess what? We are here to help. On the Bridechilla podcast, we celebrate love and help you plan your wedding day. We're all about keeping it real and having fun every step of the way. So whether you're just starting to plan or counting down the days, we're here to help you stay cool, calm, and collected. We have expert tips and amazing guests, like wedding dress designer Haley Page. Let's get this party started and embrace your inner Bridechilla. Listen to Bridechilla wherever you get podcasts or visit us at thebridechilla.com.